So we are here today with Tom Wheeler, who we've been friends with through our local pickleball community for a while now. And we're so excited to have you join us and talk about your experiences through pickleball, which includes playing not just locally here, but in your previous homes and on the road. So we're really excited to dive into that and hear about your experiences traveling and playing.
Well, hopefully it will be somewhat interesting and not boring, but I'm happy that you asked me, and I'll be happy to tell you whatever you'd like to know.
Well, I can promise you just from the initial conversation we've had, I don't think anybody will find these stories boring.
I hope you're right.
You're completely blowing our minds before we even started recording. So
I hope you're right. Well,
this is exciting.
Yeah, this is very exciting.
So one aspect of your background that fascinates me, because I only just heard about pickleball literally a couple years ago, but you came into pickleball significantly before most of our pickleball community started. I know a popular time when pickleball really started taking off was COVID or thereabouts.
Right.
Long before COVID, you were already immersed in pickleball. So when did you start and how did you even come to the sport?
Well, it started in St. George, Utah, which is where I was living at the time. And this is, by the way, where this movie took place, same place. But the president of our club at the time said, "Hey, do you want to play this new game called pickleball?" Because he knew I had been a tennis player.
Okay. And when was this time frame?
This was back in 2003, I think, something like that. So I said, sure, let's try it. So we went out to the tennis court. We marked off what the court should look like.
So there were no pickleball courts there?
No, these were all tennis courts. So we had a couple of wooden paddles and a ball, and we started hitting. And I go, this is fun. I think people would probably like this. So he went back to the board and got them to take one tennis court and convert it into 3 pickleball courts. So they built them. And then I started a pickleball club of 1, and gradually one other would come in, and then it grew, and then I just started playing there. And it started from that, because really I couldn't play tennis anymore because I had a bad shoulder, so I couldn't really serve.
How long did you play tennis for before this?
Since I was a kid. I'm not professional or anything, but I've been playing most of my life.
It was your life. You were a tennis player.
Yes, and I love tennis. I mean, I was a member of the Aspen Hill Racket Club here when it first started.
Oh, yeah.
When Stanley Hoffberger built it, I was one of the first charter members. Played there all the time.
In Montgomery County.
Yes.
Yep.
Not right near Albany.
Yeah, no, I'm familiar.
Yeah. So anyway, back then I said, well, let's play it, and it worked out. We liked it, and people started coming more and more. And then I was sitting there, and I had been retired. I was in the printing industry here in D.C. And so I thought, well, these paddles are really pretty ugly. I mean, they were just basic silkscreen stuff. And I said, I think I can do something better. So I started designing. I took a paddle and I took it apart to see how it was made.
Okay.
And then I thought, well, let's see graphically. I knew I could print on them. So I started coming up with designs, and I have a whole book here of designs that I did. And I started printing them and putting them on these paddles, and people started buying them. And it wasn't because the paddles were really better than anybody else's, but they were unique because of the design factor. So that got me going. And then one day I got a phone call from somebody saying, hey, would you like to sell your company? And I thought, this is nothing. I said, sure, make me an offer I can't refuse.
So you had turned that printing background into a whole company.
Yeah, I went from blank to doing things like this, which were 4-color, really neat designs. Not to kill you, but you see, you look at all of these different designs, and people could pick whatever they wanted. This one was a big seller, did state paddles. I probably should show it to the audience.
We'll get B-roll of this, and we'll have it up on the screen so
but anyway,
that everybody
I did
can
all
see
of
this.
these different things, and they started taking off. Well, then I was approached by the chairman of the board of this big company who happened to have a house in the same neighborhood, and he saw my stuff in Dick's. I actually got into Dick's Sporting Goods. And this was when I was basically a one-man band. I had a partner, but basically it was me doing that. So I went to Coriopolis met with the buyers. It was kind of like going to Walmart. There was these just 3 gigantic buildings, lots of offices. I go in, I do my pitch, and I walk out with an order. And now I thought, well, how am I going to make these? I'm all by myself.
Oh my goodness.
So we got some, I think literally Apache Indians who came in to work to help assemble stuff.
Because you're still in Utah.
I'm still in Utah.
Okay.
And it just took off. And then this guy saw them because he had product in Dick's. So he said, we'd like to make you an offer. So they came out and worked out a deal. They bought me. And then I was hired to go and set up a network of distributors. And I traveled around the country for them. I had a big 40-foot fifth wheel with Onyx all over the side, big truck, and everywhere I go, people, what's pickleball? What's pickleball? So I just kind of started talking it up and traveling around the country. So that's how it got started. But basically somebody who was kind of bored. I didn't want to play golf all day because it took all day and then you never have a good score. So this was something you could play. You could actually have a perfect score. So it was fun and you meet a lot of new people. And by the time I left there 20 years later, I think we had 600 or 700 players.
From your
club?
club?
Just in my club.
Wow.
That you started with one?
With one, and we only had 600 houses in there. So, I mean, it was
Wow.
everybody was
That's
playing.
amazing.
And the best story out of that whole thing was we started one day and we had an open house. Come and find out what pickleball's all about. So this guy shows up and he's standing over in the corner and he's got his arms crossed and he's just serious and he's watching. And we said, everybody can now come and try it. And he reluctantly came over, batted around. Worst player you've ever seen in your life. I mean, this guy was beyond terrible. And I thought, we'll never see him again. Well, he came back the week after, and the week after, and the week after, started getting a little better. Well, it turns out he hired his own private coach. He lives up in Montana, I think it is, where Bill Gates lives. So he's friends with all those guys. So he brought in his own private guy to teach him. Well, he ended up donating over $100,000 to expand our pickleball club.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
And I wouldn't have told you he would ever show up. And so you never know who's going to get interested and what they can do to help. But now they have a really beautiful club with, 8 or 12 courts now. And we started out with 3.
That's amazing.
And then that's the story everywhere I've gone. I mean, St. George had nothing. Then they built 24 courts. They have a beautiful facility. The Huntsman Senior Games are there. That has 12,000 athletes. And usually pickleball is about 1,200 people playing in a tournament. So we don't see that around here.
No, that's amazing.
And that's usual out there. So that's how it got started. And then on from there.
Anything else spectacular happen at that club while you were there in pickleball?
Well, we were playing pickleball, and when we heard that there was some movie company interested in doing a movie at our club, and me always wanting to be a movie star and never making it, thought, oh, this could be fun. So the movie that came was High School Musical 2, which was really going to be a movie that was going to be released on cable. I don't think it ever went into the theaters per se.
Oh, it did.
Oh, did? Okay. Well, this was going to be...
I saw it 4 times.
Okay, well, this was supposedly going to be on TV or on cable or something. But anyway, so Zac Efron, who now is, I guess, pretty well known, was the star of that. And they were making this movie, and there's a scene in there where they're all at the swimming pool. Well, that was actually filmed over a week, I think. And the pickleball courts were right next to the pool. So they could hear us, we could kind of hear them. So when they weren't shooting, he would finally come by to see, and he ended up playing, and we ended up teaching him how to play pickleball. And he was actually pretty good. He's a real good athlete.
Right, I've heard Zac Efron's a really good athlete.
And-
And now a
and
good
now-
pickleball player?
I don't know if he plays to this day. I don't know if he took it up, but I know a lot of actors and people are doing it. But I got all of his little goodies. Like there's a golf ball in there, and I got his picture, and I got all this stuff, and I sent it to my niece, who was in love with this guy at the time. Well, that made her day. So I felt like I did something. But that was kind of fun because it was unexpected. And we got him out on the court, and he seemed to like it, and he was a good athlete in doing it. So hopefully he's still playing.
Right.
And if not, both of us give lessons. We would
Yes.
be more than happy.
You
More
can
than
catch
happy.
up on
We
the
are
skills.
available.
Yeah.
And I will pick up the balls.
Yeah, we've got the perfect
Yeah.
team. So
We're
Zach,
all
if you're,
ready
you
to
know,
go. We can
just
teach movie stars.
Yeah.
We are good at doing anything.
yeah, just
Yeah.
you name it. You know, we're
They
bored,
don't-
and
they
like you
don't.
said, you started because you were bored. So
Just
let's
come on over, and you can come right here to the pickle box, and you'll learn.
Yeah.
So,
We'll get-
so anyway, that's how that kind of started. And then once I was bought out, they wanted me to travel. So that's when I thought, okay. So I talked to my wife about it. She wasn't super keen about doing it. And I said, well, I can do it on my own too while you're here. So we ended up, I got a 40-foot fifth wheel, a big diesel truck to pull it, and off I went. And what an experience. So you know, the funny thing about pickleball is that you really meet all kinds of people.
You truly do.
And so when you see what we just went through politically a few days ago, you really realize that sometimes people miss that whole swath of country out there where there's just regular people out there who are looking for something to do, want to be healthy, you know, they want to have fun, they want to meet some new people.
Yeah, they want to interact and be
Right, they're looking for their
social.
community,
Yeah.
their
Exactly.
village.
And
yeah.
pickleball is ubiquitous. I mean, anybody can play, men against women, old against young, boys against girls. It's not, you know, that nobody has an inherent advantage.
Right,
Really.
different athletic backgrounds,
Exactly.
different socioeconomic backgrounds.
Exactly, and it's really inexpensive to pick it up. I mean, you can
Right.
buy a really inexpensive paddle and be out there playing.
Low barrier to entry, very low
Exactly,
barrier to entry.
Exactly.
So you're traveling. I mean, so Sarah and I have started to. We've taken the show on the road a few times now.
Yeah.
We are not in a fifth wheel.
Right.
We are in a Nissan Armada
Right.
that we're sleeping in, which has been super fun.
Well, that could be cozy too.
Oh yeah. It's the heat is good. Like
Yeah.
you know, we're good on heat whenever, and you know, and
And
you
the
get
seats
to
recline.
the seats recline. I mean,
The
we're
third
actually
row goes
we're living in
down.
luxury, but
It's all relative.
Yeah, all relative. That experience in itself. I mean, how did you see? Like you've been in the pickleball industry for a very long time, so I'm assuming you've been able to see how the community, just like you said, like you started as a one-person club, right? And now you know it's exploded.
Right.
So how have you seen that community when you were traveling? How did that community interact? Because you know, are there other people out there who were traveling for pickleball as well? Where, you know, did you start to run into those individuals? Were they doing a circuit to get, you know, like how did that work?
There are, I was not one of them, but there are groups of people that go around. They all have their own motorhomes and they kind of travel around together like a caravan almost. There's that certainly. Then there's people like me who were just doing individuals. And basically I was trying to go to tournaments that were big enough so that my employer at that time would make it worthwhile for me to stay there and try to talk about their products. I mean, you didn't want to go to a tournament with 50 people, have them spend all the money
Right.
sending me. So
Right.
I would go to the bigger ones like the US Open, some in Texas, on the East Coast, West Coast, some of the bigger ones so that we could get the message out. And the whole
As
thing
a
was-
vendor.
as a vendor, yeah. And then I played in some tournaments. I didn't play in as many then because I was really more working. And you know, I have an appreciation in a way for, not that I'm the rock star, but what they go through because you have to set up, you do your thing, and then you have to tear it all down. Then you go to the next town, you set it all up, tear it all down. It's tough. I mean, you have to really like what you're doing if you're going to do that. Now, if you're just playing, it's a different thing because you don't really have to do anything. You just show up, play, and then go to the next one, and that's
Right.
fun too. But
And you were doing both in the same
I was doing
locations?
both on some things, and on others I was just vending. I wasn't doing any playing. And certainly, like the U.S. Open, the bigger ones, well, I wasn't playing on those. I was working then at that time.
Right.
But great experience because, like I said, I met tons and tons of people. And whether they were top players or just getting into the sport, everybody couldn't have been nicer. I mean, I really can't say I met any real nasty people out there.
And that was regardless of which regions of the country you
Yeah,
went
it
to?
didn't matter. I mean, no matter pickleball. To be honest with you, there are many times when I would leave my wallet on the table and go somewhere, and I never had anybody touch anything. I never had anything stolen. The people, I don't know if that's true today, but I'm assuming it is. They're really a good group of people, and of course, back then it was an older group because most of them were retirees. Now you're getting, with the professional league and everything, you're getting a lot of younger players. So you're getting a mix of people. So I don't know whether the dynamics are exactly the same anymore. But I do know, just from reading all the texts that I get from friends, that pretty much that camaraderie still exists.
That's amazing.
And that's what's going to make this sport grow. And that's what I'm trying to do now. I don't travel around as much anymore, but I'm really trying here in Hagerstown to build something here where it's a magnet that pulls people in from all over the county.
Right.
And even people from outside the county who might want to visit here to go to Antietam or something else, now they can come play pickleball, go do a little bit of sightseeing. It'll bring money into the towns.
Yep.
Right.
It can be a huge economic boom for any location.
Yeah.
Plug into the tourist industry.
Right.
And
Exactly.
since so many people play pickleball,
Exactly.
play
And
as they travel.
Yeah, and I think that, like as I was mentioning to you, I teach a lot at the Y, both here in Hagerstown and the one in Frederick. And they're both feeling their way through trying to figure out how this fits into the greater scheme of things, because I don't think they truly realize what an income generator it can be for them, for their bottom line. But more importantly, it'll bring the kids in, and it'll bring the parents and the kids together.
Yeah,
There's a dynamic,
families.
And that's what the Y is all about. And pickleball really is a family-oriented sport. It can be.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, my mother and I played tournaments.
Yeah,
I mean, we played tournaments together. She's the one that got me into it. And,
Yeah,
when
well,
I
there
first
you go.
started playing, her and I would go, she was my mixed doubles partner for a few tournaments. And it was really fun. And it still is to be able to go play a sport with my mother where, I mean, she's always been a very competitive athlete. But to be able to have that shared experience, go to tournaments together, have the community aspect together, tailgating after a tournament's done, meeting all these different people. It's really unique.
It's an extra bond that you two
Yeah.
can share.
Yeah, and it's a unique experience as opposed to like if I'm out snowboarding or cycling.
That's
and
a lone sport.
yeah, when even like in those sports, like now snowboarding and skateboarding, like there's still a big community aspect to it.
Right.
But a lot of the other sports that I had taken up were solo sports, so that community aspect wasn't really there, or if it was, it really wasn't one that I personally felt plugged into or didn't want to be plugged into. So that's why that's one of the reasons I love pickleball so much. And I used to always tell people that it was like punk rock tennis because that's how I described it, because I said it was like the island of misfit toys where you had all of these individuals from all these backgrounds converging into one area. And you just meet so many unique individuals that have such unique stories and backgrounds, and you learn so much, and you have friends that you would never have, that you would have never met in
And
any other
genuine
sport.
friends.
Genuine friends,
Not just
absolutely.
pop in for your
Yeah,
hour
no.
and see you next Wednesday.
Right.
But those bonds are genuine.
Right, like how many phone calls do we get in a week from our literal pickleball friends, like that we, in any other sport, you would see these individuals on the court, at a race, on the slopes. Now you're getting these calls where it's like, hey, like I'm going to be in the area this week, or hey, can you pick up this paddle for me, and then I'll see you here. And like we were just up in New Jersey at this point a few days ago, not when the episode airs, but we went and played at a private court, and we have like the pickle box stickers, so we're handing them out like candy. And the owner of the court was like, wait a second. And so she comes out with keychains and pins. And all of a sudden it
We're
becomes,
trading.
like you're
Yeah.
exchanging, like it's a
Yeah.
really unique, we all have these little tokens
It's
of
funny that
appreciation.
you said that, because there's a company, and I'm trying to remember the name, up in Utah, and they make medals. I mean, for everybody, the FBI, for you, me, anybody. Anyway, so I had them do pins that were shaped in paddles, and then I did states.
Right.
So we did Utah, we would do Arizona, and I started selling the pins at shows, and people actually started collecting them
And then trading.
and then trading them.
I love that.
And I didn't do much of it because at that point I was towards the end of my traveling, but people really like that. They love swapping things and getting things.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got so many t-shirts from various places. And we finally had a lady in St. George who took all the t-shirts that we wanted done, and she started making quilts out of them.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's really
And that was great because, mostly I'm giving them away to, the homeless and stuff because I can't wear them all. And so but that's the kind of thing that happens with pickleball, that you get people exchanging things, names, numbers. I mean, I've talked to somebody today. I only talk to her once a year. She orders balls. She calls me up. We have a nice little chat. It's like I saw her yesterday. She buys her balls. I won't talk to her again for another year. Yeah. But you wouldn't do that in most other
many other sports. Yeah, there's definitely that pickleball culture.
Oh,
but as you traveled from region to region, were there different flavors of the pickleball culture from region to region? Or was it really just a unified pickleball culture?
It's pretty much, I mean, obviously accents would change, maybe how they ran a tournament or what they did in terms of their hospitality might change a little bit from region to region, but essentially it's like one big family, and it just keeps growing. And you know, I've been in some of these really funky places where, you know, I'm staying in these trailer parks that normally you would never go to, but that's where it was near the court, and you end up meeting those people, and they go, "What's pickleball?" And then you start telling them, and I don't know how many people start playing, but what I started doing when I travel around, if they didn't have pickleball at an RV park, I would say, you should put one in. Because if you do, you will triple your business. And I had a couple places where they actually did it, and then they got back to me and said, "Boy, you're not kidding."
Really?
Yeah, no, it really, because people who are playing, a lot of them are retired. They want to do something. They can't play all day, but they want to play. So when they travel, they bring their rackets. I do it when I go to Mexico now, because now you can play at a lot of these resorts. But in the old days, you couldn't do that. Well, these people travel around, they want someplace to play. So if they could come to Williamsport or Hagerstown, stay at a place, play pickleball, and go to Antigua, they'll come. Yeah. But you have to let them know. So what we need to do is have the Chamber of Commerce key this in, have the business community key it in, have a place where we can play. Right. And then my goal is to get the businesses to support this by paying for advertising. We'll put their name in the kitchen or the non-volley zone, sell it to them, and then they'll pay to have their name in there. They do that a lot of places.
For the people that travel to the area.
They'll see it.
A Field of Dreams moment. Build it and they will come.
Yeah. No, it's a no-brainer. If I were a lot younger and a lot richer, I'd do it in a heartbeat, because it's a moneymaker.
And nowadays it seems not just the retirees that seem to have been part of that culture of traveling for pickleball when you were mostly doing it, but now so many people are working remotely, so they might still be 30 years old in the middle of their career, but working remotely and able to be nomadic and love pickleball and can travel. So,
well, you're a good example of that, right? I mean, you have a business and you're going to be traveling, but you can still do your core business while you're on the road and do the pickleball thing. So you're absolutely right. I
definitely caught that bug of traveling.
And making it work. It is very addictive.
Yeah.
I mean,
no,
it's
addictive. Fun. You asked me, and I'll. There are some things that I would warn against, or think. I mean, when you're getting ready, if you're getting ready to travel, you really need to decide how you want to travel. Do you want to go first boat all the way and have luxury and everything? Are you willing to do bare bones stuff? Do you want to pull a car? Do you want to drive the bus? Because each thing has its own problems. In other words, I had a fifth wheel and a big 3500 diesel. Well, if something happened with the diesel truck, it would affect the RV, me being able to pull it. Right. Or if something happened with the RV, then I had to deal with the truck. If you're dealing with just one unit, yes, if it breaks down, but you can then rent a car or go do something and move on. Whereas with a fifth wheel and a truck, you've got two things to worry about.
Right.
The other thing is the size, because there are some parks where size matters. You know, like some of the parks you can't get in if you have a 42-foot.
So what size do you think is ideal to go to be able to go to the most parks as possible?
It really, if you want to go to the major things where there are major cities and you're on major highways, then go as big as you can handle. But if you're starting to go, like I went to one in somewhere in where was it, Arkansas. And I got first. Oh, that was the other thing I was going to tell you. If you use a GPS, make sure it's a trucker's GPS, which tells you where the low bridges are.
Oh, smart.
Yeah.
Okay.
Smart.
Very smart.
Because I went. Two things happened to me. I went once to Arkansas. I didn't realize that it was the day of the Kentucky Derby and whatever. So everybody in Arkansas was drinking out in the streets, and I had to navigate a 40-foot thing through all of those people. Then the thing took me on a road to the campground. I thought it was just a regular highway. The next thing I know, I'm on this little road, 2,000 feet up, looking down at a lake, and I'm trying to figure out how am I going to get this thing down all these hairpin turns.
Oh.
So I had to jiggle my way down. I finally made it down. I thought, oh, thank God. So I got through that. And then the other time I was in Maryland over near Urbana, and over there is a railroad bridge off of 175 and 80 that is like 10.5, and my RV is 13 something.
Oops.
So I'm going around the road.
Big oops.
Yeah, so it's right over near where Costco has their big warehouse. So
Right.
I'm coming around the curve, and there is a big sign saying, if you're this, and this, don't do it. Well, I wasn't paying attention. It was rush hour. I turn, I come around the curve, and there's this bridge. And I go, oh. I said, I'm not going to be able to get underneath it. So I had cars backed up behind me, cars coming towards me, and I've got everything stopped. Nothing's moving. And I'm trying to figure out how am I going to get out of this? Because I was by myself.
Oh my gosh.
So finally I said, well, I just got out. I went to one car and I said, listen, can you hold all your cars here? And then I went to the other guy and I said, now you go around, you go around. I've gradually got the cars backed up. Then I had to back the thing up 50 feet into a little turnout by some house that was falling down.
Oh my
I
gosh.
got around and I finally got around, and on the way back, everybody was giving me the international salute because I had cars backed up over 2 miles.
That's amazing.
So I learned so you plot your route, make sure you know that you can fit all these places, because that's embarrassing, especially when you're by yourself. And I was new to it too, so I still wasn't really comfortable with my RV.
Right.
So you want to be comfortable. You take big roads at first, and then gradually, as you get better at it, you branch out. But I would say anybody that wants to do it, because you meet the neatest people. I went to a town called Fort Madison in, I think it was Indiana, Illinois, I don't remember, right on the Mississippi River. And I was asked to come there to do a street fair and show people what pickleball was like. So I said, oh, that's interesting. So I go to this town, and it's right on the Mississippi River, big bridge going over. And I said, where do you want me to park? And they go, oh, we'll park by the railroad tracks. So I park over there. No water, no sewer. I mean, I'm totally on my own here for 2.5 days, 3 days. So I'm going, okay. So I get this thing all set up. I don't know who's coming. Well, the people in this town were the roughest looking people I've ever seen. I mean, this was a tough area, and I'm going, wow. So I went in one night for dinner to this place, and I go, well, what do you do here? Why is this town even here? And they go, well, originally it was a stop for the steamboats on the Mississippi, and then when that stopped, we have an industry that's right down the street. So I got in my car and I drove down there, and what was it? It was a state prison. And it was one of the old ones with those big, it looked like Alcatraz. I mean, it was the nastiest looking place. Well, that wasn't the prison. You go around the corner, there was a Supermax prison up on the top of the hill, and that was where they keep the worst of the worst. So most of these people worked in that prison.
It was a big employer.
So they were tough, no nonsense. So I do this tournament, and a lot of people watch. Then they had a concert where they had country music going. I mean, it was great. I mean, if Toby Keith had been there, it would have been perfect, you know. And they had a jet flying over, and this was obviously after Iraq and all that. So they were coming over with the American flag, and people were going crazy. And it was just a really fun experience. But yet they all like pickleball. And now I understand they're now playing it there. I talked to the guy who started it, and they've got courts
So these
going.
big max security prison guards are all playing pickleball?
They may be. And I said, hey, you know, I wanted to start something in Utah at the state prison up there. I wanted to do something, say, pickleball for prisoners.
I've heard that some prisons have that.
They should do it. I mean, aside from taking a wooden paddle and turning it into a shank or something, that's the best way to dissipate a lot of energy.
Right.
Have them play for 8 hours. They're not going to want to fight at night. They're going to want to go to bed.
And get that dopamine high.
And they have a good game, and I mean it's cheap to do, and they've got plenty of concrete, so they can put in courts.
Put the lines.
So I always thought that was a good idea. I never did it, but somebody I'm sure will do it.
Yeah.
But it works for everybody. But those experiences make it fun, and so you get to see some of the country. And I lived in Utah at the time in St. George, and that's mostly an LDS Mormon state, obviously.
Yes.
So I knew a lot about it. I wasn't Mormon, but right across the river from Fort Madison is Nauvoo, which is where all the Mormons came from. So I went to see that town, of the origin of that. So that was kind of fun. I knew a little bit more.
Right.
So you do those kinds of things. So it's fun.
How many states do you think you traveled to for pickleball, whether you were playing or serving as a vendor?
Gee, that's a good question. I would say maybe 30. I didn't do anything up in the Northeast, like Connecticut, Vermont, New Hampshire, any of that stuff. I got out west, and of course I lived in Utah, so I did Colorado, Arizona, all of those states. I've done most of the South, Louisiana, Alabama, Florida, Georgia. So I would say somewhere in that neighborhood, quite a few. And it's growing everywhere. I mean, everywhere you go now, you see it. And literally, I mean, you could play in a tournament every day forever and not ever repeat them. I mean, they're growing so fast that there's nothing you can't. You could make that a total career and be out there. You don't have to ever come back. So I mean, your hardest thing is going to be trying to figure out where do we go. Where is the best one to go to in terms of number of people you want to reach, whatever you're trying to push, in terms of your audience. You have to look at them, because out west there are these huge tournaments, and down in Florida, huge tournaments.
Huge, right.
Some of the other ones are smaller.
So, based on what you just said, how much planning do you do? How much of it is spontaneous, and how much of it do you plan out?
Well, mine was all planned, because I was trying to figure out how to go from one place to another and keep moving. So you had to look at now there's all the programs that show you, pickleballtournaments.com and all these places where you can see where the tournaments are and when. And then you decide, well, how many days before the tournament or during or after the tournament do you want to be in a place? Now, if you're not vending and setting anything up, your time can be shorter, but you may want to be doing the sightseeing bit, which case you might want to stay longer. So depending on kind of what you want to do in a tournament, then you start saying, okay, how far can I go in a day? How long are you going to want to drive?
Right.
Now, when I was by myself, I would drive 8 hours and not think twice about it. With my wife and the dogs, we might do 4 hours. So depending on that, then you start looking for tournaments that are along your route. How far off the main track do you want to get? Because sometimes if you're traveling 200 miles up here, then coming back and then going, that's a long time to do that. Is it worth it?
Yeah.
It might be. But once you do that, then you really want to plan it out, because you also have to plan, where are the gas stations? Where do I get gas?
Where's parking in South Philly?
What's
that? Are we going to drive for 45 minutes to try to find a parking spot?
Yes, we will.
With a Nissan Armada.
That's the other thing. Now I bought, and you can think about this too, what I bought for my fifth wheel, I had one that was just a standard fifth wheel. Then I bought the toy hauler, and the reason I bought that was because it had a garage in the back, which I could put all of my product in and not affect my living room. Well, you could use it and put in a scooter or bikes or whatever, so that when you get parked, if you're close enough, you can use that and you don't have to unhook everything.
Yeah.
So those, and some of them will actually take like a smart car, where you can get the car inside of it. So I mean, all of those things, it's just how much pain are you willing to take in terms of paying for it.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you decide. But I'm at that stage where comfort to me is more important than anything, because I mean, I want to do this all the time, so I want to be comfortable doing it. But if I were in my 20s or 30s or whatever, maybe I'd be willing to get something a little more.
Front seat of a Nissan Armada.
It's
It's actually it's been pretty comfortable. You get a blanket and you just
No,
you know?
but I mean, and then if you've done camping, which I never did, I wasn't a camper. My idea of camper is a fifth wheel. But if you can do a tent and whatever, then it opens up a whole lot of other places.
That's so true.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, car camping compared to like that's
yeah.
my bike packing bike over there, where we would throw all the gear on and then just go, and so you're trying to set it up. So compared to that, I mean, that's sleeping in a car is like a 4-star hotel.
Okay.
So
Well, and that's why then you want to look at things that'll accommodate all your stuff. Now,
Yeah.
for example, like if you do go to Utah and you go to St. George, they are noted for their extreme biking. I mean, they've got some of the best bike routes out there. And I had a neighbor who, she started biking, doing a trip just for breast cancer, for her friend who had breast cancer. She ended up going from San Francisco to Florida on a bike.
wow.
And she had never ridden before.
Oh my gosh.
And not only that, but she was always about 40 miles ahead of the pack every day.
Wow.
And now she takes women around the country on bike tours of various parts of the country.
That's amazing.
And she's bought one of those $20,000 bikes that you can pick up with your
Right.
pocket.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
she went from nothing into full-blown biking, and I've got another friend who does all that extreme stuff out there. So if you want to have some fun, that's the place to go.
Well, I think that's the coolest part too that we've been realizing is that when we are out traveling for anything pickleball related, you get to experience so much more than just the pickleball. You get to play the pickleball, meet that local community, become ingrained in that local community. I mean, we're always asking people like, where should we go for, like, where do you want to go eat? Like, what's a good eatery here? Is there anything that we should be, seeing while we're here? And that's been super amazing, and some very fun stories come out of that. I mean, and you just meet amazing people, and that's what we keep hearing from everybody that we talk to. Either interviewing them or just meeting them. Like everybody has these amazing stories about the community that they're involved in and the friendships that they've made. Or they may never talk to these individuals again, but they're still telling the stories about it.
Sure.
They're still telling the stories about I met this person here and I did this with them here, and it's just a very unique atmosphere to be a part of. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Hey, thanks for asking me. I hope I was of some interest.
Oh my gosh.
Oh no, your story is amazing.
I love your story.
Yeah.
I could talk
Good.
forever hearing about all your
Well,
travels.
if you ever get out there and you do see Zach, you can say
When?
hi from me.
Yeah,
when you
when,
get out
when,
there. Say,
yep.
oh, yeah, you played with this guy Wheeler. And he'll go, I don't know who the hell you're talking about. But